All right, everyone, welcome back to part 2 of a 2-part episode. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
The Idaho Business Podcast is sponsored by Dell's Outdoor Advertising. These guys are an institution when it comes to billboard advertising, traditionally or digital billboard advertising. They are represented from Pocatello all the way to Blackfoot, and they will tell you this is a great way, and I will tell you this is a great way to have top-of-mind awareness for your clients, your potential clients. There are some great things that still can be accomplished from billboards, even though we're in the Facebook and social media marketing, realms of the world right now. So if you contact Rob and you set up a 3-month deal to be on the billboard, he'll give you your installation for free, or your first month for free. Excuse me. And again, you can go to idahobusinesspodcast.com. Click on their logo, their name, and find their information to get that deal rolling for yourself. And they are fantastic at it. So go see them today.
Without trust planning, if there's just a will, the legal structure is the money gets deposited into a bank account, right? And when they turn 18, they get full access to it. No prohibitions of any kind. But prior to that, the guardian is in control of it. And guardians can justify expenditures that are supposedly for the kids that really don't result in any benefit for them,
Yeah.
And the court supervises guardianships to an extent and many expenditures, but really, practically, how are they really monitoring that, right? Are they really, if somebody writes something on a piece of paper, are they going to go double check it? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just leave that open to, you kind of hit it on the head right here, a potential third-party abuse of those finances. Like they are using that money, not for the kids, but in a way that benefits them. And, the kid turns 18 and there may be nothing left, or they turn 18 and they go blow it all on their friends convince them to pay for a trip to Hawaii, pay for them all to go with them, like they don't put a dime into it, but then they spend $50,000 on all these friends and they get back from their trip and the friends are like, okay, see you later. and that's the end of it,
We'd hate to think that our family members would do anything like that. And most likely you're going to have a lot of good intentions going into this if it did happen, but wouldn't you want everything spelled out just in case?
The more detail you can give, the better. And you mentioned like how you want your kids raised, because they may go to a guardian that you approve of, like you want them to be there, but they may not have the same like just inclinations that you do. Like you may want your kids to participate in community sports and stuff like that, and that family they're going to may be the exact opposite of that, right? They may not care about that stuff. So if you can outline some of that and give them some direction, it would help them to say, oh, okay, we don't necessarily do this, but we know they valued it and felt like it was important for their kids, so that we can go ahead and do that for them because we know it was important for that family to do that. But without any direction, they would never know that,
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you can be lucky enough to get them in a family unit that would be very similar to yours,
For sure.
And there's not a big drop off there. But I can tell you, even just in my family, and you probably would say this too, that even in people and you love, there's pretty big divergences in how how their household is run and how they, and just the things that they do. And so and not even in a negative way, just really different than your
exactly. You think of it this way too, is that like we always think of like, man, this is a catastrophic event. If both my spouse and I were to leave the earth, and leave our kids behind, and we're trying to get all this stuff prepared for them. But then we got to really put ourselves into their position. Like, okay, they wake up the next day without a mom and a dad. Whatever they do going forward is going to be a huge change for them. So you want to spell it out so clearly so that you can have their life be as normal as it possibly can be, because they're going to have a rough time, so why make it rougher than it has to be? And, instead of just, sitting down, giving Mark a call and saying, hey, help me pencil out this trust. It'd be huge.
Yeah, let me give everybody a little tip. Anytime you have a babysitter, or even your older kids, if they're the babysitters, if for any reason they can't get a hold of the parents, make sure they understand that the first person they call is that trusted guardian person, and not to call law enforcement. So 911, law enforcement, they're there if there's an emergency, if someone's breaking in the house or something like that, right? They're there for that. But if they can't get a hold of mom and dad, they shouldn't be called, because guess what happens when they show up? They have an obligation to put those kids in foster care until they locate the parents, or until an appropriate foster parent shows up. And if you're like my family, it's not like my parents or my brother or whatever, they're not approved foster parents, And so these kids just lost their parents. They've been put in foster care by law enforcement, and now grandparents or maybe sibling, whoever it is trying to fight to get them back out of that system. And even if it's just a couple days or something, you would never want to put your kids through that. You would want to make sure those kids, if some tragedy like that happened, you'd want to make sure that they go to the right person. And so that's just kind of a practical tip, is educate your babysitter or your kids to say, hey, if you can't get a hold of mom and dad, you call grandma, you call my brother, my sister, you call these people. You don't ever call law enforcement.
Yeah. And that's a great thought for sure to put in here. As we talk a little bit more about the business side of things too, like, you really can have things set up too, like, hey, just in case something happens, this is how I can see my business coming to an end, or how maybe we give equities to this employee that's been with me forever, so he can continue, or he or she can continue to take the reins that I was holding, and continue to run the company, so it can continue to support my family even without life insurance, stuff like that. That's the importance of a trust, of having everything in there. And that's something I still need to do with Mark a little bit more. It's just having a little bit more spelled out when it comes to my business, because we don't want to think about death.
You have a lot of the stuff in place already that most people miss, right? You have your operating agreement that helps to outline some of that and define it. And we've talked about this. Most LLCs or most smaller businesses don't even do that. I mean, they file their state organization, they get an EIN number, and then they stop. Yeah. And so there's no directive at all in their business as to what would happen, from a management perspective, if there was any type of transitions that occurred.
I like it. Yeah. I like it that we're talking about this, and I hope people that are listening just get a ton of value from this. And and they're probably thinking, hey, smart guy, he understands it. I need to talk to him. I definitely need to give him a call. But in kind of as we come to the end of this episode, Mark, you did said something about before we switch gears, I say let's clean up what we're talking about with this trust. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about within the trust playground that needs to be mentioned right now?
There's a lot of stuff that may be unique to each person, but the general idea is that you can set them up to protect your family and leave a legacy for your family too, right? To make sure that there's a process set up for those kids if something did happen, and something they can build on in their lives, and not just be a one-time thing and nothing to show for it type of thing. So trust planning is really powerful that way, along with making sure business type entities can keep functioning if needed, and the family can have that resource. So
I like that. And then switching gears just a tad here, you did mention something about filing your annual reports and stuff like that. I know as busy business owners, sometimes we forget to do the small things. Is that something you guys can help with?
Yeah, so we've been kind of launched a new thing for our clients where we can do an annual flat rate where we serve as a registered agent. So the value of that is if somebody tries to sue you or anything like that, they have to go through us first.
That's awesome.
Instead of the person directly. And then we also make sure, so we also take the annual report, we do that for our clients, so they don't even have to worry about it. So that gets, instead of them having to look for the email or wait for it, they get sent to us, which we then take care of it directly for them, so they don't even have to worry about it. We've found quite a few people that let that lapse. And with us doing it, it's just there's not a concern anymore with that. And then we also do their annual meeting and make sure that they're keeping up with their compliance part of their business. I'd probably put LLCs in the 90% category of people that don't do any compliance. And the problem with that is if you don't do your compliance stuff, if you get into trouble and you have a liability concern, your personal assets aren't going to be protected. Your corporate shield's going to fail. And all that work you've done to keep things separate from each other is going to mean nothing, And so we do all that for just a low annual rate. Right now we're doing $300, which is us being the registered agent for the whole entire year, making sure your annual report's filed, and doing your annual meeting, which there's more to it than just the meeting. We send out the notices for the meeting. We conduct the meeting here in our office, or we could do it over Zoom or something like that if it had to be done that way. That's not a big deal. And we prepare all the paperwork for it too. So
awesome.
It's all ready to go. And then if something happened, you'd be able to say, hey, yeah, I've been doing my annual meetings. I've kept everything current. And it'd be much harder for a court to look at that and say, well, you're not a legitimate business, right? Because that's what we want to prevent, right? We don't want some judge looking at your corporate documents and saying, well, you haven't followed what you're supposed to, so we're just going to ignore your business.
Yep. They love to pierce that corporate veil.
Oh, they look for every opportunity to do it. Regretfully, I mean, there's not a lot of pro business, court type stuff out there. They're going to try to, if you have a liability and you don't have a corporate shield in place, they're going to try to get through it and get your assets if they can, So the more things you can do to build that shield and make it super strong, it's going to really make it hard for a court to say, hey, we're going to ignore that.
I like it. Man, there's some good stuff in this episode, Mark. Man, you've definitely added some value to people's lives, I'm sure, today. This is if you guys are hearing us right today, you gotta make a few steps if you haven't done it already. Number one, give Mark at Snake River Law a call. His paralegals and his secretaries will help you out getting something set up with them. Mark, what's the number or best way to get a hold of you?
So our phone number is 208-406-9885. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of us. You could send an email to me. It's just Mark, MARK @snakeriverlaw.com. If you send an email, I probably would respond with like a Calendly link or something, so you could just schedule at your convenience, and make sure we're not having to, juggle schedules back and forth, but make it work for you from that perspective.
That's right. And make sure you tell them you heard about them from the podcast. That'll make them smile. It'll make me smile. All right, guys. Well, thank you. And Mark, thanks again. Obviously, we're going to have to keep you coming on at least every 6 months so we can just keep fresh. It's good to have some legal advice on the show. And this is a huge one for us today. So thanks again.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you for letting me be on here and helping you out where I can.
Yeah. And last but not least, we are sponsored the end of the show. We're always sponsored by New Clean Commercial Cleaning, my company. If you go to newclean.com and schedule a my solution huddle call, my janitorial solution huddle call, all you have to do is sign up for a quick call. No pain. You're going to talk to me most likely. And if all you say is, hey, I heard about you on the podcast, come talk to me about my facility. Regardless if you hire us or not, we're going to give you two of your restrooms in your office, your tile and grout in those restrooms clean for free. That's just the offer for the podcast. Let's get it going, and you guys have an awesome day.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.